car brought with it a promise of freedom. Do you remember when you got your license? When you could finally drive. You were free. You could go to the mall, see your friends, and since then it's taken you to work, to school, wherever you needed to go. The car brought that sense of freedom. On days like this, the promise doesn't feel so real. Picture this. You're ready to go out for a night with your friend. You're supposed to go meet him at a bar. You are leaving. You have a 30-minute drive, sometimes 20. You try to start your car, and it doesn't. Well, now you're not in a very good spot. You start to panic, you don't want to think about how much this could cost you, so you call BCAA, they say everything's going to be okay, and they go tow it to a shop, and you're going, okay. Now you remember you still have to go meet your friend. You still have half an hour to try and get there, and that would be enough time if you were driving, so you think everything's probably going to be fine. So you go to check, and you could walk, but it's about 20k, so that would take like 6 or 7 hours. Some people might try to bike it, but it's still like a 2-hour bike ride. So you land on public transportation. You know where your bus stop is, you might not take it often, but you walk outside, you pull up your phone so you can check the directions when you walk over the stop. You notice something. It was only a 30-minute drive, but when you take transit, it takes almost 2 hours. This day you may decide to call an Uber, you may decide to have your friend meet you closer, or you might just cancel. Now imagine if that inconvenience was actually your everyday life. 18% of people over age 65 do not hold a valid driver's license. There are countless reasons for this. As you age, your health does deteriorate. Health deterioration can happen to anyone. And the other main reason is financial constraints, which can also happen to any of us. The situation I mentioned wasn't hypothetical. My car didn't break, but I had a seizure that day. Since then, it's been about a year and I'm still not authorized to drive. And I've started to see just how difficult it is to get around our cities if you can't drive. Let's talk about what we should do instead. Today, we're going to explore why this topic should concern everybody. And then, we're going to look into 3 things each individual person watching this video can do to make an impact. Meet Richard Schmidt, an 82-year-old man living in Caramoose, BC. Schmidt is the primary caretaker for his wife. They need to make frequent trips into Penticton for appointments relating to her Alzheimer's. Schmidt failed a routine driving test, and since then, he's been left with only 2 legal options.
Schmidt says moving isn't an option.
I'm not going to go through all my channels of selling everything and rebuying and removing and everything at my age. To get a taxi or something to go to Penticton, I can't afford that.
Coping in the only way he knows how, he's continued to drive, despite his license being revoked.
How have I been coping? The best way I know how. I'm still driving.
Wanda Morris, VP of Advocacy for the Canadian Association of Retired Peoples, says that
on average people will live for 10 years after they lose a driver's license, and it's often a recipe for social isolation and in fact an earlier death.
She then calls on us to do more to make our communities more accessible. Let's focus today on how we can do that. Let's start by talking about our personal choices. For those of us who are able and are fortunate enough to live in areas that are conducive to it, anything that's within a 2-kilometer distance that we go to, we should probably be walking it. The 2021 study, Climate Mitigation Effects of Daily Active Travel in Cities, found that increased active travel and reduced motorized travel had significant benefits with regards to population health through increased physical activity and decreased air pollution. Even doing your simple errands, like getting a coffee as I am now, or going to the grocery store or meeting up with a friend, through walking, will have massive benefits for your health. An earlier systematic review found consistent support for the positive effects of active travel on health over a longer period. If you have mobility issues, don't worry. You still have options. You can take public transit, which has accessibility features built in through buses that lower and elevators at SkyTrain stations. They also have an element of active travel built in, as you still need to transport yourself from the station to your destination. Speaking of public transportation, let's turn and look at its role in this discussion. When it comes to transit, the power is in the passenger. We've understood something that feels a little counterintuitive for a really long time. The more people that ride transit, the better transit gets. Economist Herbert Mohring details this in his 1972 paper, Optimization and Scale Economies of Urban Bus Transportation. You may be concerned about overcrowding and being shoulder to shoulder on a bus. That's just not what happens. Suppose, for sake of illustration, that a bus company initially provides service on a route every 20 minutes. Suppose, in addition, that demand for service suddenly doubles, and the bus company responds, as bus companies commonly do, by doubling the amount of buses on the route. This is how Mohring described it, and it makes sense. You end up with the same amount of people on the bus, but your bus runs twice as often. This is a material improvement in transit, simply because more people rode the bus. This applies even more widely to when companies consider adding new bus routes. We will all need the bus to show up for us at some point in our lives. By riding it now, we ensure that the service will become more frequent, more reliable, and more ubiquitous. This is one of the ways that you can ensure your mobility and autonomy well into the future. As the passenger, you have the power. Speaking of your power beyond your wallet to the transport companies, let's talk about your civil powers. This is the most direct form of involvement. This is where you speak up. This is where you get involved directly. If you live here in the Lower Mainland, you can participate in TransLink surveys by signing up to their TransLink Listens Insights panel. White Rock offers a direct way to connect with the local government through White Rock Talk. Many municipalities in Canada offer ways for you to communicate with your local officials. They are the ones in charge of making sure that our spaces and our transportation are accessible and available to everybody. Use these channels to share your voice. Elected officials can't act if they don't know what you want. Tell them what you personally need. Tell them what your pain points are, and let them try to fix them. If there's a particular walking path that hasn't been maintained in years, but that you would love to use to get to the grocery store, tell your local officials. If there's a part of a bus route that's just dead service, well, tell TransLink or tell whoever manages transit in your city. As much data and statistics as these organizations have, it's hard for them to know exactly where the improvements are needed the most. That's where you come in. What should you walk away from today thinking? You should understand that simply by making the smallest changes, walking to the grocery store, or riding transit more often, you can make a large impact. And you should remember that if you're willing to make more than just those adjustments, if you're willing to put yourself out there and tell those in charge of shaping our communities what would help most, that you will have an immeasurably large impact on helping others. Simply by walking to the grocery store, you can make yourself and your community healthier. By taking one more trip on the bus, you can show the transit companies that there's demand for that route and that people need it. And you should remember that this matters for more than just people like me or Richard Schmidt or the thousands of people who don't drive for any number of reasons. One day it will matter to you. Remember what Wanda Morris said? On average, people lose their license 10 years before they die. How do you want those 10 years to look for you? How will your life look when you need to rely on those systems as well?